Hello, everybody. Tushita. Today we are on the seventh day of the Days of Miracles. And we are so happy that today we can welcome Tenzin Palmo, who actually retired from teaching, but she made a big exception for us. We are so very honored. Thank you so much, Jitsuma. And for those of you who don't know Jitsuma, if that is even possible, I know Jitsuma dislikes that kind of, introductions and things like that. So I make it very short, not to take precious time from the teachings. Very, very short. I get it. So happy Losa to everybody. Good morning if you're in the Americas. Good afternoon in Europe. Yeah, I think you're just having lunch. And here in India, it's 5:30. So we're nearing the evening. So Jitsuma was born in the 1940s and then, which I find quite extraordinary, sailed to India. Can we imagine sailed to India in the 1960s? And there, Jitsuma met quite quickly her teacher and became ordained. And then I know Jitsuma doesn't like that we harp on about that part, but she lived in a cave for 12 years. What can we say? In her 30s and 40s in a very remote area of the Himalayas. After, 24 years, there is that story about that visa officer not giving her another visa, but India been very kind, she went to Assisi, a very spiritual place in Italy, and then spent some time there. And for the last over 20 years, Jitsuma focused on establishing DGL, a nunnery, quite close to here, 3 hours away. And now it's fully running and has been turning out the first, amazing scholars, practitioners, and it has like over 100 nuns, isn't it, Jitsuma? So maybe Jitsuma can share a little bit more about that later on. Welcome to Tushita, Jitsuma. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you, Kunphen. Really, it's an honor for me to be here doing this Zoom with you. And I hope that out of all of this, something helpful will emerge. So please go ahead.
So, our this year's Days of Miracles program is dedicated to the swift return of our spiritual teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Yeah, I think everybody is aware that Rinpoche passed on in April last year. So, our first question, Jitsuma, if you don't mind, because I know that I don't know how to word it, your root guru passed on while you were in the cave, I believe. And I'm sure also other gurus must have passed on, other gurus of yours. So now in Tushita and all the centers, all the students of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, many are still grieving, or they feel a little bit lost, or many different reactions because we're all different. Some said, well, I didn't see Rinpoche anyway for 10 years, so it doesn't really make so much difference. I just got my life practice last year and I just carry on. So it's very interesting how different people have different perceptions. I think those people who were maybe more fortunate, I'm not sure, to have Rinpoche around in body more often and see him more often, they're grieving a little bit more. And those who didn't have the opportunity anyway, they go like, yeah, I just carry on. This is Rinpoche's advice and doesn't make such a huge difference. So for those of us who are grieving and feeling lost and not knowing, where to go, I wanted to ask you for advice because that is a very special period for all of us. Yeah.
Yes, well, indeed. And it's usually something which happens to us all eventually, especially if the Lama is older than ourselves. Or, in the case of my own Lama, Kamtu Rinpoche, he passed away when he was 48. So that was a big shock for us all because we weren't expecting him to go so soon. And at the time when he died, it was a huge shock. Actually, I was in Nepal, and Dego Khyentse Rinpoche told me. He called myself and my Dharma sister, Annie Lodra, and told us that he just heard news that Khyentse Rinpoche had died in Bhutan. And so it was really, I mean, it was the one time when I cried like I never thought I could cry, and felt like I was in a desert, and my guide had just left. And I felt completely abandoned. But then it came to me as I was, my Dharma sister said, look, come and sit, we'll sit together and just meditate. So I came and sat with her. And then as I sat, I recognized that actually the true Lama, the essence of the Lama that we go for refuge to, is always with us. And maybe it's more with us when there's no physical barriers anymore. That the genuine Lama is right in the center of our heart, and that we can never be apart, even for one moment, if we have devotion. That's enough. And I think that this is really very important, that we shouldn't identify our devotion to the Lama to merely the physical manifestation of the Guru, that, you know, he looks like this, he said like that, you know, he has a nice smile, and so forth. That's not what we're going for refuge to. What we're going for refuge to is his Buddha nature, which is identical with our own Buddha nature, and from which we can never be parted, even for one moment, and which he reveals in a way that is hidden to us. So that's the point, and we should recognize the Lama in our hearts. You know, we can see him as he looks, if you want, if that's a comfort, but sitting right in the center of our being. And recognize we are never apart if we have devotion. Because he represents our own innate wisdom. I mean, this is not just fantasy. I mean, for example, one time I hadn't seen Khyentse Rinpoche for 2 or 3 years because he was in Bhutan, I was in Lahul. And then when I saw him again, I said, oh, Rinpoche, we've been apart for so many years. And he said, haven't you realized even yet that we are never apart for one moment? Yes, Rinpoche, sorry. And that's the point. That's what we have to recognize. That's what Guru Yoga is all about, is recognizing that the Guru is always the most fundamental part of our own being. The second thing is to recognize that when he comes back again as a Yangtze, as an incarnate Lama, he's not going to be the Lama Sopa you knew. He's going to be a different manifestation. He's going to play with a different role in his next incarnation, and not to expect him to be like he was before. Because this is a huge burden for these young tulkus, that everybody expects them to be how they were in their past life, and they're not. They've gone on. They're different now. They're going to be different. Just as Lama Sopa was different in his past life and this life, he's going to be different next time too. That was a mistake they made with Lama Yeshe. Wanting Lama Yeshe to be the same as he was before, even though he tried to explain by being reborn as a Spanish boy. If he wanted to be the same old Lama Yeshe, he could be reborn as a Tibetan. But he didn't. He wanted to experiment with something new. And, you know, his students didn't want him. They wanted the same old Lama Yeshe, and he wasn't. So please don't make that mistake with Lama Sopa. Allow him to be who he's going to be in his new manifestation. And appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Tsunma. So how can we learn to listen to our inner wisdom if now there is seemingly nobody to turn to ask for advice and things like that? How can we develop our inner wisdom and our inner guru, Tsunma?
Well, I think it's helpful to do Guru Yoga, where you get the blessings of body, speech, and mind from the Lama. Then you envision the Lama dissolving into light and then coming through the top of the head down into the heart, recognizing your mind, Lama's mind are the same, water into water. And then just sit with that. Don't rush to the next thing. Sit with that feeling of being in a state of open, empty cognizance, that inner empty clarity of mind, which is the true nature of the Lama, and listen to it. You can even put your question, what shall I do next? And then listen, because it's a very subtle answer, but the answer will come because inwardly we know. The wisdom is there. The only problem is our being able to access it. But the Lama is in our heart. The Lama is our true nature. And all we have to do is to really learn how to be quiet and open to that nature which is always within us but normally covered over by all our busy conceptualization. And trust in that. And call out to the whole universe, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and the Yidams and the Dakinis and the protectors and everybody, and say, okay, here I am. I've given my life to the Dharma. Now, what shall I do? You show me what to do. I sacrificed my life for you, so from your side, you please reach out and help at this point. And really, if you trust in that and really, really open yourself to their healing blessings, they will come. They will come because the universe is filled with compassionate intelligence. We just have to plug into that energy. And it's through silence and surrender. Devotion. It comes because it's there, always waiting to be called on. Normally we're looking everywhere else. We don't know where we're supposed to be looking, but it's within us the whole time, just waiting. So trust in that.
Thank you, Jitsuma. Jitsuma mentioned that we shouldn't expect when Rinpoche comes back that he's going to be the same person in the same body, in the same qualities. So, Jitsuma, may I ask, if it's not too personal, how did Jitsuma relate to Jamdo Rinpoche's new incarnation? Was there a feeling like, oh yeah, you're coming back, or can it be that one doesn't feel anything, and it's totally, one thinks it's a totally different person. If Jitsuma could share something about that.
Well, my Lama Kamta Rinpoche was brought back to Tashijong and enthroned when he was 1.5 years old. He was still wearing nappies and drinking from a bottle. And he was up there on the throne with his big hat on and all his robes and was enthroned by Digo Khyentse Rinpoche. Then I didn't see him at that time because I must have been in Lahul, in retreat. But then when he was 2 years old, I went to Tashijong. He'd been there about 6 months by this time. And I was very nervous to see him because I thought when he sees this strange-looking Western nun, he's probably going to burst into tears, and then I feel bad. And so I kept putting it off, day after day. And then I thought, this is ridiculous. I have to go and meet Rinpoche. So I went up, and he was sitting on his seat, as he always does, just sitting there. I mean, he was 2 now. And I prostrated, and he was looking at me. Then he said to his attendant, "That's my nun. Look, my nun, look, it's my nun. Rinpoche, the previous Kamta, always called me his nun. Oh, look, here's my nun. So when he said like that, I burst into tears, right? And he was, oh, my nun. And then he got down from his seat, and he came over and gave me a hug. which was very unlike him because he's really actually quite shy and quite quiet. So then after that, every day I would go up and play with him and got to know him in that way. The previous Kamta Rinpoche was very powerful as a presence, but he was also really quite shy and he spoke very softly, very quietly. He was actually very introvert, although he had to found his whole community of lay people as well as monks. But the present incarnation, this one, maintains that quiet, introspective kind of personality which the previous one had. But there are two controls, and the other control manifests more the organizing and outer kind of extraneous kind of personality that the other one also had. The other one had both. And so one of them has that kind of personality, and the one which is in Tashijong has the more quiet, introvert kind of personality. So it's kind of interesting to see them both. But they're both lovely lamas, and we're very happy that they're back with us again. So did Lama Zopa give any indications of where he might be reborn next time?
I don't know, Jitsuma. No, not that I've heard anybody mentioning anything. No. Yeah, because it came so sudden for many people. I mean, Rinpoche gave us warning. Rinpoche manifested a stroke in 2011. And then telling us there was even a big meeting of worldwide center directors, and Rinpoche, the whole meeting was about what will happen when Rinpoche is not there for us. And, we have to grow up, and how do we grow up? And then we all went back into permanence. Rinpoche will be with us forever. And then it became, that was a big shock, I think, for many. Rinpoche, they were on social media, Rinpoche laughing the day before, and suddenly Rinpoche was gone. So, yeah.
Well, there we are, the truth of impermanence. As the Buddha said, the one thing sure about life is death. And we never want to accept it. We might recite it every day and say, oh, yes, yes, we know. But actually, it still comes as a great shock. And it happens to other people, but not to anybody that we care about. Least of all ourselves. Human beings are difficult, very hard-headed.
It's Jitsuma.
Isn't it true, though, I mean, why are we shocked when the most natural thing in life is to die? But we are shocked. What to do? Anyway, I mean, as someone like Lama Zopa, the other point is to appreciate all the many, many teachings that you've received from him, and the books, and the talks, and the instruction that he's given through the years. I mean, most of that has been preserved in a way that in olden times would never have happened. And so one should be very grateful for the direction that was given throughout all these years. I mean, he made very clear what he wanted and what he hoped for. And so, I mean, you can't say that you have no guidance.
Yes, very true, very true. Rinpoche gave 24 hours for so many years. I mean, literally 24 hours since Rinpoche didn't sleep, as many people could experience. So, yes, it's just we have to grow up, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, this is, honestly, Kunphen, this is the problem, that many people remain like spiritual babies. Whereas a good parent takes care of their children while they're children, but is training them to become adults and, in a way be independent of the parent, even though their parent is still their parent. But they don't keep running back to mummy or daddy every minute saying, what should I do now? What should I do now? Come on, you're grown up. What do you want to do? So that's the other side of it, that people have had a lot of instruction, a lot of guidance through the years, and now they should be making their own path and clear within their own hearts what they want to do. and what is important for them. And different ones are different, you know. But look into yourself. What do you want to do? When I said towards the end, when I said to come to Rinpoche, what should I do now? He said, well, what do you want to do? And then I would, say, well, how about da-da-da? And he would say, oh, yes, that's a good idea. Or that, oh, you want to do that? Which meant maybe that wasn't such a good idea. But, in general, he expected that I was going to now, I had a large enough canvas on which I could select what from all that was most meaningful for myself. I didn't have to keep asking the Lama. I mean, most of you have been with the Lama Zopa for so many years, isn't it? You're all adults now. And should have confidence in the Dharma, because that's the ultimate refuge.
Thank you, Tsutsuma. Tsutsuma mentioned how, although, it's our practice to remember impermanence and death every day, and, when we wake up, and to be grateful that we're still alive, many people mentioned, and we can feel it here also at Tushita, that after COVID, something changed. So many people still experience a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, even panic attacks, quite, strong signs of the uncertainty of life. And so they're asking for advice how to deal with that fear. Now it seems so more, visible, that anything could change anytime.
Well, it does. I mean, and our problem is our refusal to accept the fact of life, which is that everything is impermanent and change. But I would say if we feel fear arising, then it's important not to fear the fear, but to allow the fear to come up and look at it and say, hello, fear, what are you feeling? And look into the nature of that fear. We are all being taught how to look into our mind and the feelings and emotions in the mind. And one of the ones which is most difficult for people to look at is fear. But that is also one of the most common. It may be from many different reasons, many different sources, but one of the most common feelings to arise from very deep inside us is that of fear and anxiety. And so it's very important to make friends with that and to look at it with kind eyes, not trying to get rid of it, not trying to suppress it, but allowing it, like the darkness, to come into the light of our awareness and our loving compassion. Because when the darkness comes into the light, naturally it will dissolve into light. But as long as we keep it suppressed or trying to avoid it, then it will stay dark. And in the dark, all sorts of things grow. So what we are trying to do is to bring this into the light of our awareness with kind eyes, friendly eyes, and ask, again, this question of asking what is the problem and allowing a response. Because so often we cover it over with all our thoughts and conceptual thinking, and we don't listen to the silence where the answer is. And that this fear, which is the ego, of course, but allowing that to come so that it can be healed, because it's something sick in the mind. Our ego is not well, and therefore our ego feels threatened, and therefore we have fear and anxiety. But if we make friends with that, it begins to heal our sense of self and becomes healthy, gradually, slowly, by allowing these feelings, all these negative feelings, to come up and be accepted with kindness. And then gradually, not most probably all at once, but gradually, it begins like a balm on a sore. It begins to heal by sending love and compassion back to our poor little ego that needs desperately to be loved and accepted in order to heal, in order to walk the path towards overcoming the ego and seeing a much deeper level of our awareness, of our consciousness, which is covered up at the moment by our small dualistic conceptual mind. So don't fear fear. This is what I would say to anybody. Allow it to come up, accept it, and give it lots of love and compassion. Embrace it. And don't try to change it. Allow it of itself to turn into its true nature, which is something very, very different from how we imagine it to be from our small perceptive mind. Gradually it can transform, but it doesn't transform by trying to get rid of it or arguing it away, but only by accepting it and giving love and compassion.
I think that sometimes the question arises, what is the fine line or the difference between accepting something, but then we are often taught, but you have to apply the antidote. Don't just let the delusions run away with us. You have to apply the antidote. So I think many people are a little bit unclear of, is that a sequence or a different method, or how does it work?
Well, I would say, for example, if you take negative emotions like anger and greed and also fear, though they don't deal with that, during the day, one might apply an antidote. For example, if I've become very angry or annoyed or irritated, then to remember the teachings on patience and try to change the anger into, recognizing this is a helpful, stage on the path, and instead of getting all upset why somebody who is difficult, if I'm friendly and patient, that is actually a very good lesson and very helpful, and thank you very much. But during practice time, when you're sitting with the mind, then one should not try to apply any antidote. One should look at the raw emotion, including not just fear, but anger, lust, jealousy, whatever the emotion is, not trying to stop it in any way, either by suppressing or transforming, but experiencing it in its nakedness with a clarity, but also with compassion and love. And that gradually, in a formal practice session, is the way to deal with our negative emotions. Because our negative emotions, as Tantra says, at the base is a kind of very clear, precise wisdom, which has got distorted. And what we need to do is to come back to that wisdom again, right? I mean, in the mandala system, the negative emotions, the kleshas, they have, like, anger is mirror-like wisdom and so forth, and greed is discriminating wisdom. So the point is to recognize that it's got distorted, but the essential nature of this painful emotion is actually pure, vital wisdom energy. So therefore, we don't want to stifle that. What we want to do is purify that, and we purify it by recognizing its nature with love and compassion. Then of itself, it will distort itself, undistort itself. It's like a knot which it will unravel of itself. That's why the greatest teachers, the greatest lamas and so forth, are so filled with a kind of inner joy and sparkling wisdom. It's because they've taken all these emotions and seen their essence, and so they've just bubble up in a totally different, unimpeded sense of joyous energy and wisdom. It's not something which is prefabricated, so to speak. It's the natural. They've unraveled all those twisted roots, and now the pure energy just manifests forth. And that's what we have to do. And that's what our practice is when we look into the mind. And, you know, one thing I thought of, there's this clip of this woman who takes hooks out of the throats of sharks. Have you seen it? I'll send you. It's extraordinary. If you go down into the ocean of the mind, into the ocean of consciousness, people are hoping that they're going to meet up with dolphins and beautiful golden fish. But there are sharks out there, and there are killer whales and other monsters of the deep. And most of us would think the most worst thing could possibly happen in all the world would be to meet with a shoal of sharks. Now, this woman, I don't know how she worked it out, but anyway, at a certain point, she put her whole arm into the mouth of the shark with all its teeth to pull out the hook that was in its throat that it got from fishermen, you know, that they hooked it and then it broke away, but it can't get rid of the hook, which is in its throat. And so she put her arm inside and took out the hook. She's taken out more than 300 hooks from sharks. And there she is with this shark and her arm inside him, taking out the hook, and all these other sharks around waiting for her, please, to come and help them too. So to my mind, that is an example of her tremendous compassion towards this shark. What was considered to be our greatest enemy in the ocean turned into their deepest friend because of her great compassion. She didn't reject them. She didn't try to kill them. She tried to help them. And that's what we have to do with our negative emotions. Give it lots of compassion and help to heal them.
Wow, that's an extraordinary story.
I'll send you the clip. I mean, she's an extraordinary
please,
woman.
yes.
She's an extraordinary woman, no?
Oh, yes. Amazing.
Mm.
So, especially nowadays, there is again coming up the question. Of course, it's coming up again and again because these things happen all the time. How we can keep our compassionate heart in these times of war and conflict, and not get helpless and angry, and maybe also self-righteous, or just utterly, hurt and despondent. So if Tsutsuma, could give some advice for that.
Well, of course, you know, we know that this is a time of great conflict, and also a number of Dharma centers in Israel ask for some advice because, you know, they're trapped there in that tremendous antagonism on both sides. I always say, do not plug into that dark energy. That's the important thing. Do not become paranoid, angry, self-righteous, biased. All sides are suffering. All sides want to be happy. And all sides are totally deluded. And how sad. So, send out the antidote, which is love and compassion. I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but it's true. In the face of darkness, you have to send out light. We cannot send out more darkness. We just have to be strong and see all sides, whoever is involved in this terrible conflict, including the people around who are not necessarily participating. everybody is suffering, and just immense love, compassion, wishing all beings to be well and happy, all beings to be well and happy, with no exception. Absolutely everyone, may they all realize their innate true nature, which is beautiful, and we just don't see it. And so, yes, to meditate on light, envision somebody in front of you, first someone you love and you're worrying about, and give them love and compassion, then people, all the people who are involved, and then people that especially you feel are culpable and that you feel justified in hating. Don't hate them. Give them love, give them compassion, because they are also very, very bewildered and not in control. They are in the control of all these negative emotions which are causing so much pain to themselves and to others. And then send that light out further and further and further until it ends up enshrouding the whole planet, because the whole planet needs love, and the whole planet needs light, and the whole planet needs compassion. The animals, the insects, the birds, the fish, all beings, not just humans. And then the whole universe, because who knows what's going on in other parts of the universe we can't see. And all other realms of being, that we don't see. Just feel this tremendous sense of uncontrived, unconditional love for all conscious beings, all sentient beings, because we all, in our heart of heart, want happiness. And we are so deluded that we cause nothing but suffering for ourselves and for others, and destroying our planet in the meantime. How sad. But we will give love. As the Buddha said, hatred does not cease by hatred. Hatred ceases by non-hatred. So we cannot join in that paranoia. We cannot join in that conflict inside ourselves. We have to transform that into something very, very positive. And give up. I mean, even the Buddha, at the time of the Buddha, the local tribe, the Avichis or whatever they were called, overcame the Sakyas and killed them all. And the Buddha could do nothing about it. He couldn't stop the war. There was some conflict going on. They wanted the territory, and so they took it over. And I mean, this was during the time of the Buddha. He could do nothing for it. We've been warring with each other since beginningless time, haven't we? Families, villages, towns, countries, one country against another country. Always when we come together, we are in conflict. There is also goodness in the world, but just right now I'm talking about the conflict. Historically, they started off with clubs and then bows and arrows and then cannons, and now look what we've got. But it's the same, motivation driving it all, no matter what our weapons. Along with that, sending out light to the darkness is to remember the light, because in all of this there is so much goodness in the world. And even in countries of conflict, there is so much goodness going on. There is so much love and compassion between neighbors, even between enemies, so-called. People do extraordinary things and take extraordinary risks out of their innate good heart. There's so much goodness in the world. That doesn't get reported. So let's connect to that and think of that and rejoice in that. Rejoice in all the goodness that is happening right this moment in the world. It's not just bad things, lots and lots of beautiful things, lots and lots of beautiful people. And our true nature is completely beautiful. We have gotten a bit messed up along the way, and we've lost our connection with our true nature. But our true nature is Buddha nature. We should never forget that all these beings have Buddha nature. How sad that they don't recognize that. But eventually, one day, they will. Maybe not this lifetime. Who knows how many kalpas it will take. But eventually, we will all wake up. It's just that we're in the moment we're dreaming a nightmare. what to do. So send out joy, send out love, send out compassion, and rejoice in the goodness. And forgive the errors and all the darkness, because that is not what we need in this world. What we need is more and more light. So each of us sends out, holds up our candle in the light, in the darkness, and candles do shine a long way, it's true. And you can come together, and people can come together and sit in a circle. Circles are good. And just, send out love and compassion and light into the world. It's good to do like that, That also has a power, the power of positive thinking and positive our minds have great power. I mean, if you looked at the world right now, it's like, we're worrying about physical pollution, but the real pollution is mental pollution. All our greed and aggression and fear and paranoia and frustrations and all these negative emotions, like a big pollution around the planet. And the important thing is not to get caught up in that, and to really counteract that darkness by the light of our positive aspirations. And call up all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and all the protectors and all the Dakas and Dakinis and everybody. Come on, guys, get to your act together. Do something now. And, it's good. And recite sutras, recite mantras, recite all auspicious things, as a counteraction to all the rubbish in the media. The power of truth against all these lies. We can do a lot.
Yes, thank you so much, Tsunma. As Tsunma mentioned already, so many people are afraid to watch the news because it's so much negativity and they feel like overwhelmed. And then they think, oh, if I just take it in, then I get something like compassion fatigue, as we call it sometimes, right, in the West. And so then some people say, well, I don't watch the news at all anymore, and ignorance is bliss. I just kind of do my own thing and I hide in my own little world. But both ways don't seem quite right in that way.
Well, I think we don't need to plug into every news media that goes on. I mean, people get also addicted to listening to the news continually, and we know the news is usually bad news. So it's not a true representation of what is happening. It's only emphasis on one thing, the thing which is going to, catch people's attention, which is usually something very disastrous. And every time it has to be worse and worse and worse, because people get addicted to seeing these horrors. So we don't need to be watching that all the whole time. That doesn't help. We know these things go on, but we don't need to always be plugged into that. But nonetheless, at the same time, we can, as I say, do other things to counterbalance that. We can think about the goodness. We can have meditations of sending out light and love. Also, the Buddha himself said we start by giving love and compassion to ourselves. So we make ourselves strong, and then we give that out to others. So we breathe in as well as breathing out, and the two need to go together. So that if you're only breathing out, then you get asphyxiated, but also if you're only breathing in and thinking me, me, me. So this ability to nurture yourself in order to become strong, so that then you can give out also that light and love to all the other beings. And then you don't get compassion fatigue, because it's conjoined with wisdom. In Buddhism, as you know, compassion and wisdom go together. And so that insight into the true nature of what is happening is very important, along with the opening of the heart to embrace all beings. So the point is, it needs intelligence, and to balance it so that, even if one did like Tonglen, etc., you don't end up feeling completely emptied out in the negative sense. But in fact, you get filled with more strength and in a kind of inner joy. And for example, when people go to see His Holiness the Dalai Lama, with all their woes and all their troubles and all their sadness from all over the world, they go to him because they think he knows he's a refugee too. And, they sit there and they cry. And, he used to cry too, because he felt their pain. He knew what their pain was. But within 5 minutes, somehow or other, he changed the whole thing round, and they were laughing and laughing, and he was telling jokes. And they came out smiling. It's like they handed over their pain, and he took it and he dissolved it into its essential, empty, joyful nature again. So it wasn't that he dismissed their suffering, he took it, but it didn't stifle him. It wasn't like a heavy rock in his heart so that he couldn't breathe anymore. But he had that wisdom to be able to transform it into something light and hopeful and beautiful. And that's why they felt that somehow everything had just turned right round for them. They came out laughing and smiling, like, they had laid down a huge burden. But His Holiness wasn't burdened. That's the important thing, because he had not just compassion, but also wisdom to unite the two. So that's what we have to practice for.
Just continuing from that topic, sorry to go on about that, but there is a lot of people who say, if I made a big mistake in my life, how can I not get stuck in that self-blame, in that guilt, and how can I purify? Tsunma mentioned already purification, and Tsunma mentioned to purify with compassion, but how does it really work? And because somehow we don't seem to believe in it, because otherwise we would just let go of all that stuff we carry around like a big burden.
Right.
All that low self-esteem and the guilt and, everything. I. I'm the worst.
Yeah. Well, of course, this is a big question. Again, it's something which can't be dealt with in 2 minutes. But I would say there are two things here comes to my mind. One is, of course, the standard 4 powers for purifying negative actions. So first of all, we have to recognize everybody makes mistakes. Good God, who doesn't, right? If it's not one thing, it's something else, right? So we've all made mistakes. So what? You fall down like a little baby. You watch a little baby, a toddler, when they're learning to walk, right? They take a step or two, they fall down. Then they pull themselves back up again. They walk another few steps, and they fall down. Then they stand up again, and then they never get to the point where they say, I am a stupid baby, I am too weak, I will never get this. Other people have strong legs, they can walk everywhere. Me, I'll never do it. Look at me, my legs are bandy, I can't balance, I'm useless. I'm just going to sit here and toddle for the rest of my life. No baby is that stupid. Babies think, if other people can run, I can run. And of course they do. They get beyond the point where their legs are so weak they can't support them, and next thing they know, they're running all over. So that's the first thing. It doesn't help to say, I'm too weak and I did this bad thing and I'm a bad person, because that's simply not true. At that point, maybe we were weak, maybe we did something unskillful, but who doesn't? So the first power is the power of remorse. Yes, I did that. It was really a stupid thing to do. I'm sorry I did it. And the second power is to say, I won't do that again. As best I can, I will never make that mistake. I may make other mistakes, but that one, I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to do that one again. And then third is to do some kind of, maybe some purificationary practice. On Monday, our nuns are going to start a week of Nyungne, the purificatory practice of prostrations and fasting, based on the Thousand Arm Chenrezig, as you know. And that is a practice which everybody can join in. Monks come, lots of lay people come. So everybody together joins in this ritual of purification. It's very lovely because it is everybody together. And as you know, on every second day you keep silent so you can't complain that you're not eating anything. And Vajrasattva, of course, as you know, in Tushita you do these 3-month Vajrasattva retreats. That is considered very powerful prostrations, recitation of mantras, 35 Buddha confessions, and so forth. So in the Tibetan tradition, they have various methods for purification. It doesn't purify everything because we have endless past lifetimes of making mistakes, but it does help. Does help. And then you can rely on the fundamental fact of our innate Buddha nature. We should never forget we have Buddha nature, that our basic essential nature is completely pure and perfect. There's nothing to be added, nothing to be changed. In itself, it is complete, non-dual, pure awareness. This we all have. It's the essence of open, spacious, empty luminosity, which we all have. And that is our true nature. This other stuff are just little clouds. That nature is completely pure and can never, ever, 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 ever be contaminated, even by so much as a grain. And that's our true nature. And when we realize that, then we can see that all this other stuff is just really just little clouds in the sky. It's not the sky. It's not the vastness of this pure sky. Why be so attached to our clouds? The second point is that if we tell ourselves, oh, I'm stupid, oh, I did this, I'm such a bad person, oh, I'm no good, and so forth, that is not humility. Somebody said humility is the absence of any person to be proud, right? So genuine humility is where there is no ego there. Bashing up our ego by telling us how useless and hopeless and stupid we are is just making a very sad, unproductive ego, which is always thinking me, 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 me. Sometimes I say it's like if we break a leg and we put the leg in the cast, we can't walk, it's very difficult to walk, and we're always thinking, oh, my leg, somebody hits the leg, ow, oh, my leg, we're always thinking leg. Why? Because leg is sick. But when the leg heals, then we can run, skip and jump, and we're not thinking leg. Who thinks about their leg when their leg's okay? So it's like the ego. If the ego is sick, and we're telling it all the time how stupid we are, I'm so stupid, I can't do this, oh, I'm hopeless, everybody else is so clever, but me, I can't. Look, they're all meditating in samadhi, it's only me that has thoughts. Then you're just me, So the Buddha said, I think it's very important to remember, that in the four immeasurable of loving kindness and compassion and rejoicing and equanimity, he said you start with yourself. Now, who are we wishing, may you be well and happy and free from suffering? Not to our essential Buddha nature. Our Buddha nature already is love and compassion. We don't need to give it love and compassion. That's its nature. Who are we saying, may you be well and happy? Our little ego that is sick. And so this is like ointment on the wound, making our little ego healthy, making friends with ourselves, making so that with the shamatha meditation to make the mind calm and clear with the loving kindness and compassion meditation to heal the pain and the low self-esteem, so that we have a healthy, well-balanced sense of self, which is going to walk the path towards selflessness. Because a sick self cannot walk the path. It will just revolve around itself, me, 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 me. If we are truly healthy, we're not thinking much about ourselves. Other people are much more interesting, much more important. But, why do we have all these psychiatrists? People who sit there and talk about me, 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 me. My childhood, my family, my this, my hang-ups, my this, my that. Why? Because they're sick. If they were healthy mentally, they wouldn't need psychiatrists. Psychiatrists go out of fashion. So the Buddha said, start to be your own psychiatrist, give your own self, make friends with yourself. You can't get rid of yourself just by saying there's no self. Who is saying there's no ego? The ego, right? I don't exist. That's nonsense. So first, the way to dissolve the ego is through wisdom, but we cannot get wisdom if we don't have a healthy, well-balanced sense of being to walk the path. And so this is very important. So blaming ourselves, feeling guilty, putting ourselves down is simply a waste of time. And it's just the ego's game. It doesn't mean that we're therefore more humble or less self-absorbed. Actually, it means we're more self-absorbed. And genuinely good, helpful people, if they are not going to end up just being kind to others and being mean to themselves, in which case you end up with burnout. But to have that balance of being kind and friendly within, and then that manifests outward towards easily being kind and friendly to other beings, because there's no barrier anymore. So really, we also should listen to what we tell ourselves, because so many people criticize themselves, put themselves down habitually, beat themselves up. And that, as I say, it doesn't help at all. It just ends up with being a sad, miserable little me, but it's still me. So not to do that, but to take the Buddha's advice and make friends with ourselves. Metta means literally to be a friend. And create a healthy inner space, not an unhealthy inner space. Because that's where we live. So why not make something comfortable? Have a friend, because we've got to travel with ourselves wherever we go. So we might as well have a nice friend with us, not someone who's always putting us down and criticizing us. No. You choose your friends with people who are nice. So why aren't we nice to ourselves as well as to others?
Thank you, Tsutsuma. May I ask a question that is relating to that? Because some people have really deep traumas from their childhood and things like that, where they just maybe can't deal with it skillfully themselves, because Tsutsuma mentions it's therapists. And so sometimes they're even not aware of it, that they have these, these childhood problems or whatever trauma they might carry around. So then sometimes we wonder about spiritual bypassing, that we're just building on that, trauma and making it nice, and but never really dealt with down there. Is there any advice Tsutsuma could give to those? There's all kind of levels to being hurt, but that really deep hurt.
Yeah, well, that's again, I think one of the contributions. Every country that the Buddha Dharma has gone to, it has contributed its own cultural biases. So you get Chinese Buddhism, Thai Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, which merged with the culture of that environment to make it what it is. It's always Buddha Dharma, but it also takes on the feeling tone of the country that it goes to. Buddhism is very adaptable. And so we have to ask ourselves, well, what is the West given to Buddhism? I mean, there are good things and not such good things. One good thing is the more and more the influence of the females now in Buddhism. I mean, many of the best scholars and teachers are women, which is not true in traditional Buddhist countries, usually. And another influence has been social activity. It's not enough to sit on your cushion saying, may all beings be well and happy, we're going to go out and do something. But the other thing which they add is the importance of psychology and the recognition that a lot of our mental pathways, our neural pathways, have been constructed at a very early, sometimes pre-verbal age, and are still with us and very much influencing our thoughts and feelings and memories, sometimes without us being conscious of it. So sometimes therapy can be very helpful for people to uncover these underlying feelings which often have not been explored. I think one of the problems, and what you're saying is true, that sometimes in the bright light there is a deep shadow, and that shadow is not addressed, and sometimes it comes out in unfortunate ways, and people can't understand how it could be when there's such a bright light. But with bright lights come deep shadows. Thich Nhat Hanh used to, because he got influenced a bit by modern thought and a little bit new agey, but he would get a lot of teaching on nurturing the inner child and seeing ourselves as a small child, especially if we had childhood traumas, and cultivating loving kindness and compassion towards this small child and its fears and whatever was the particular trauma, to bring it up in a nurturing atmosphere so that you can bear to look at it. And then from that to give love and compassion to not the person we are now, but the person that we were maybe, in our infancy, if that was the time when the traumas came, so that it gives it a safety support in which they can bring up these memories, and memories come up which they didn't know they had. So it takes time, I think. But nowadays, I think it's really true that for many people, they are very much unconsciously often influenced by these deep memories, if they were very negative, traumatic memories, and they need to be looked at. I mean, it's very important to look at them with love, not with fear, but with love and compassion, but within a safety net, so that it doesn't create more trauma from reliving the original trauma. And always, or the back of it all, to always remember this was something which happened then, it's not happening now, and it's not our true nature. So we can allow it to come up, and compassion all round, not only for the victim, but also for the perpetrator. Having compassion doesn't mean condoning. What's there to condone? But what caused them to act in the way they acted? People act because of causes and conditions, and we don't know what those causes and conditions were which caused them to act in the way they did, which then traumatized the victim. But we can have gradually compassion all around for all those concerned, and so slowly in that way to heal. But always by not being in denial, not suppressing, but by bringing it up into the fresh air of our present day consciousness. Does that answer anything?
Yes, Tsunma. Tsunma, we could be I could be going on and on, but I think our hour's up. Philippa says, watch the time, Kunphen. So Jitsuma mentioned rejoicing beforehand, and one of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's favorite practices he drilled into us. It was FPMT policy. We should rejoice, because I think Rinpoche could see how difficult it is for us to rejoice. And I find it always fascinating how they say it's the easiest way to make merit. You can sit on the couch, have a cup of tea, and just rejoice. And I go like, but how does it? It's so easy, but it seems so hard in a way. So I would like to rejoice in Jitsuma's amazing, amazing work over the last, oh my goodness, 60 years. And Jitsuma, may I just ask one last little thing about DGL? If Jitsuma could tell us something to rejoice in. So about the nuns and how they're doing, and because Jitsuma has seen so much change and development in the last 40 years. So I wanted to end the session maybe on a very beautiful note for all of us.
Well, the most joyful thing which happened to us fairly recently was that four of our nun teachers who are nun graduates from our Nuns Institute in Donjugatsaling in DGL became Kenmo. And Kenmo means like a doctor of philosophy, and they were given special pandit hats to wear and were bestowed this title by Kamta Rinpoche. And then many monks came and lay people, and it was very nice because their families also came from Ladakh and Kinnour and elsewhere to rejoice, right, in their daughter's accomplishment, and they were all terribly happy and proud, and everybody, of course, offered katas, and it was a time of great rejoicing. That women now, they are becoming geshemas, they're becoming kenmos, and that women now finally are finding their voice. And it's a beautiful voice, and it's about time it was heard. So yes, we can rejoice, not just in our nunnery, but in nunneries all around and with the lay women. I mean, everybody now, male or female, are educated and therefore perfectly capable of reading and hearing and understanding and questioning the Dharma and putting it into practice. There's no distinction between male or female as far as study, practice, and accomplishment is concerned. So this is a very wonderful thing that finally, the fourfold Sangha of the Buddha's aspirations are being realized at this time. So along with all the difficulties that are happening in this world, there are good things too. And so we can rejoice. Rejoice in all the goodness, all the people who are practicing, all the people who are studying, and all the people who are genuinely reaching out to benefit as many beings as they can. Really, we rejoice.
Thank you so much, Jitsuma. Thank you so much. And I'm rejoicing in our good fortune to see you hopefully very soon again for the nuns meeting at Tenzin.
Oh, yes, indeed. That's a wonderful thing that's going to happen now. Yes, to a recognition of the contribution that non-Himalayan nuns can also make to the whole display of the Dharma throughout the world. That's what we have to concentrate on, and recognize that each of us has a role to play. Of course, you have a big role to play, Kunphen, because you have been holding up Tushita even during COVID and all during so many difficult times, and you're always there to keep it going and holding it up, and we really, really appreciate that deeply. Your total commitment to your Lama's wishes and fulfilling his aims. That's well done, you. Really, well done, Kunphen. You're great. We all think so.
Thank you, Jitsuma. Jitsuma, could you lead us in dedications on top of the rejoicing?
Well, on top of the rejoicing, let's dedicate the merit for we are now in the dragon year. And a dragon is a very fiery energy, right? The previous year was a rabbit. Now we're with dragons, and dragons, despite their fierce energy, are also known to be very warm and generous and kind. They're not bad animals, they are very auspicious, really one of the top auspicious creatures on this planet. So we will all really from our heart pray that this coming year, that fierce energy will break through the dark cloud of conflict and fear and paranoia which is enveloping the world, and it will break through and roar its Dharma roar, and there will be extraordinary reconciliation, and things will begin to return to some basic sanity again. May it happen in this beautiful year of the wood dragon.
That was a very powerful dedication. Thank you so much, Tsunma. Thank you so much for your long, 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 long friendship with Tushita.
I love you all there.
And we do hope that you come and visit us one day. And not too far off. And I know Jitsuma doesn't really quite like when we wish her a long life, but a very, very healthy life. Please, Jitsuma, please don't stop teaching us, because we are so thick-headed sometimes. So we have to hear it again and
We
again.
all.
And you're so inspiring. And put it always in such an uplifting way that I think everybody appreciates so much. I just look at the little pictures everywhere, and everybody has a big smile. Thank you so much, Itsuma.
Thank you, Kunphen, thank you, everybody. May you be well and happy in this beautiful year of the wood dragon.